Today's guest is hailing from the T-Dot. We go back to the mixtape days together. In my opinion, he's someone that should be in folks' top lists 5, 10, 20, whatever of the illest MCs to do it. Definitely a personal favorite of mine. He's a pioneer in his own right, but not because of age. But more importantly, he's a father. I'm talking about no other than Kardinal Offishall. Kardi, welcome to the Fatherhood podcast.
All right. Thank you for that. You see, I like you knew that there was a Jamaican coming on, so you had my horns ready to go.
My little setup over here has been a little suspect today, so I wasn't sure if it was going to chime through, but I'm glad you heard it.
Word up.
Yeah, rarely the guest hears it, and we're all like, yeah, and then the guest goes, what just happened?
So Kardi,
his budget is not Drink Champs budget.
Yeah, for real.
So Kardi, talk to us about your, before we get into anything fatherhood, we need to know what your family dynamic is, kids, how many kids, and what's going on at the crib.
Well, I mean, I'm Jamaican, so I got 24 kids.
Jesus Christ. Well, that's Puerto Rican.
No, I have 3 kids and a wife. So my youngest daughter, Mecca, is 4. It was actually just my son's birthday, middle son, Masai. He turned 7 on Sunday. And then my oldest son, Dela, he's 8. He turns 9 in February.
So you still got youngins in the crib.
So you're basically tired all the time.
You know what? I'll be completely honest, Like, I hear all the time from other parents, other fathers, other moms, whatever. Our kids are not the norm. So it's like where other kids like just drive their parents absolutely up the wall bananas. Like my kids are super, super, super dope, if we're being completely honest. Of course they drive me crazy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
In their own way.
Of course, like kids should, but in the grand scheme of things, like, me and my wife, and excuse me, hats off to my wife, like we have an interesting dynamic at home because my wife, I met her through the industry. When she was in her first year at Howard, she was an intern for her sister, who used to work at MCA Records, where I was signed to. So literally from like day one that I met my wife till now, she knew what was up in terms of, me being a part of the music industry. And, we've always been able to balance what our personal views were with regards to, morals, values, family ambitions, marriage, all the rest of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it's shout out to her, because I'm sure right now she would have loved for me to do a tag team and, tag her out so she could go, do what she's got to do. But I'm like, yo, EFN called, we got to go do a podcast. She rolled her eyes. She's like, all right, I'll see you in an hour.
That sounds about right. My girl's doing the same thing downstairs.
Of course.
She's like, fatherhood. Be a father right now, motherfucker. Yo, Manny, what the hell are you doing over there with those sounds, bro?
No, it's not me, bro. I was like, it sounded like a whale. I don't know. The audio is not going to be great today. I'm sorry. I don't know.
Today we're having a bad day.
Casper the ghost is fucking up the audio, right? I don't know what's going on. But Kardi, you say you got a 4-year-old daughter, a 7-year-old son, and an 8-year-old son. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. So I got you on the same. I got a 4-year-old daughter. She's gonna be 5 in February. Okay. I got a 7-year-old son who's gonna be 8 in May.
Okay.
So I'm curious, how do your 4-year-old and actually, because they're all pretty close, 7, 8, and 4. How do they commingle? What's their dynamic together?
I don't know how good of a show this is gonna be, because I'm just saying, because they actually are amazing together, if we're being completely honest. Like,
lie to us a little bit.
What?
No, we need the secret. We need the secret sauce. Like, how do we get this in our home?
It's the Jamaican ass whoopings, or the threat of.
Let's set it up this way. Any jealousy going on, because that's what E's got a newborn and he's got a 2-year-old, and he's dealing with some severe jealousy from the 2-year-old, his daughter.
Right.
Yeah, my daughter's wilding out. I got a 4-month-old baby boy and a 2-year-old daughter, and she's wilding out. Crazy jealous.
So here's a joke. When Dayla, I guess Dayla was like almost 2, because I think they're like 18 months apart or something.
Okay.
Something like that. So when we brought home Masai, Dayla literally, and I was like, yo, he can't even talk. Like, he literally looked at his mom, pissed, and like just his face, he was super pissed. He wouldn't say shit. Like he was so upset. Like he looked at the baby, he looked at her, and yo, like she hadn't been home more than 10 minutes. She's like, yo, she took Dayla and they went in the car and they just left to go bond, because it's like he was visibly pissed when she brought home his little brother. Like he was not fucking with it at all. Like he was not interested. He was like, yo, what the fuck did you guys just do?
That's exactly what happened to me.
Exactly. But I don't know what happened on that car ride, but by the time they got back, I'll be honest, like he was cool. You know what I mean? Like he didn't
wait, the one car drive? Yo, you all like, come on, man. You got what book did you guys read, or write a book if you didn't read one?
Yo, you know what's crazy is so one of my guys, he used to be part of our crew back in the day. The good thing about, like, I had kids, I guess, relatively late. You know what I mean? Like, let me do the math. In like, you know, whatever, mid-30s or what have you. So at least comparatively, you know what I mean? Like compared to like the rest of my boys or whatever. Yeah. And even my family, you know what I'm saying? Like my sister had kids. So my sister's youngest, well, no, I forgot. She did have a third kid. So there was a gap, but my sister's first 2 kids, I got to pretty much like, prepare with her kids, you know what I'm saying?
Training wheels.
Exactly. Or my cousins and all of that, you know what I mean? Like a lot of people had kids before me, but one of my best friends that was in the crew, he like made the craziest sacrifices that at the time I was like, nah, B, like it doesn't sound like something I want to do, but I'll never forget his son, Jabril might have been like 3 years old, and he was damn near reading novels. And I was like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I'm saying? He's like, yo, I got, like, when Jabril was born, I got rid of TV. You know what I mean? We literally read with him every day since he was born up until now. And he was just like, yo, it's really about the sacrifices that you're willing to make. You know, is it about you or is it about your kids? And at the time, you got to understand, like, before I had kids, my routine was like, I'm in studio. I'm a early morning guy, so I'd be in studio from like 6 a.m. till 1, but you know, like 1 p.m. But like when I came upstairs, it's like I'm eating a big ass bowl of cereal. I'm fucking watching Seinfeld reruns and shit like that. So you know, after I put in all my work, I'd be watching TV and you know whatever, doing whatever the fuck. But when our kids were born, you know, me and my wife had the conversation, and we're like, yo, like, are we willing to thug it out? You know what I mean? And like really like get rid of, you know, all of our vices, you know what I mean? Because I know a lot of parents that, you know, they just stick their kids in front of the TV, they give them the iPad, they're like, here, fuck off. And they, you know what I'm saying? They do the thing, but it's like, for us, we were like, yo, we got to make this sacrifice for the kids. And you know, listen, we don't watch any TV, no real outside of like doing homework. There's no tech time until the weekend. You know what I'm saying? So Friday after school, when Friday's done, we in it from Friday afternoon straight until Sunday night. So we go hard. You know what I mean? Like we watch movie after movie after movie, and you know I gotta watch some movies I like. Most of the shit I can't stand, but I gotta sit through it, you know what I mean, and watch it with them. So the weekends we go ham, but after that, like during the week, nada.
Wow.
I
gotta learn that one.
What's the school situation for y'all right now, and how does that play into, like, are they going physically to school, or are they all virtual right now?
Hell no. So, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, my wife, she's a doula as well as she has her own charity. So her businesses were, you know, ran out of the crib for the longest time. And then, you know, for me, because I'm Jamaican and we have to have 5 jobs minimum, besides, you know, besides touring and being besides being a you know, a touring artist, doing shows and hostings and DJs and DJing and whatever around.
Let me find out you're an alpaca farmer as well.
But no, like, you know, I'm an executive at Universal Records up here, so it's like I would go into the office, like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Whenever I had a meeting, like once or twice for the week. But it's like most of the time, if I'm not doing my thing on the road, then I'd be here. But since the pandemic and quarantine, like this has been where I've been like the past, whatever it is, 6-7 months, you know what I'm saying? So being that we have the blessing of, I don't necessarily have to go anywhere, at least to do my corporate hustle, it's been dope, because I've been able to contribute in terms of like helping out when I can with the kids, you know. So I think since the pandemic started, they've been going to school. They go to private school, so they've been doing their thing virtually. When September came around, because I know in the South they start in like August or whatever, but we start in September. I guess similar to New York. I think New York starts in September too, right?
Facts.
So yeah, so they gave us the option of whether we wanted to go into school, you know what I mean, have the kids go in, or do it virtually. And you know, I think for us, we were able to make the choice, and we said we sat down with the kids and we spoke to them as well. And we were like, yo, we want to at least ride it out till Christmas and see what it's like, you know what I mean, in terms of like how the corona is actually hitting the schools and so forth. And I'll be honest, last week, maybe like last week, Monday or Tuesday, I'm like, yo, like maybe we should send the kids into school, because there had been no case. Yo, as soon as I thought that, literally the next day, we got an email from the principal that's like, yo, there's been a COVID breakout, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then to be completely honest, the day after that, they're like, yo, we actually have to shut down the school for a little bit till we get it sorted out. So that kind of just made me know that we were doing the right thing, you know what I'm saying, as parents, because it's difficult, because I know a lot of my homeboys and stuff, like they got to go to work, you know what I mean? Like you can't pay the mortgage if you're not going to work. But it's like you feel like a shitty dad sometimes, because it's like, yo, you got to send in your kids into like the cesspool that is school, because we all know that little kids are the nastiest pieces of work out there. But it's like, yo, like if you gotta, you know what I mean? Like if you gotta make ends meet, then you gotta go do your thing. So lucky for us, we're able to have the kids, do it virtually. And 80% of the time, it's been cool. The other 20% of the time, it's really tough, because the kids they're too young. They don't necessarily know how to express themselves. So it's like our kids are highly intelligent. So at the very least, like when they break down and cry, we can have a conversation and really try and communicate and understand their feelings, and then try and help them out as best as we can. I know it's not that easy for a lot of parents, because there are kids that just don't know how to communicate what they're feeling. But again, like for us, like we have the type of house to where we're like, yo, we need to be able to speak about any and everything at all times with mom or dad. And that's something that we try and instill in them from, the time that they're able to understand, what proper communication is. So we really, really more so than other parents, really try and talk about everything that we can. And I think what it is, to be honest, we're just setting them up. We're preparing them for teenage years, you know what I mean? Right. So that when shit is really moving and it's like they got to make those difficult decisions, we want them to be able to come to us and talk about, yo, I smoked weed for the first time, or when they start talking about sex, or when they start talking about whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? Like we want to really set the precedence from now, so that they grow up and they grow older and they feel comfortable talking to us about anything,
So it sounds like you don't even have to do disciplining in your house, but what kind of disciplining do you do?
It's very, I'll be honest, it's very interesting because ironically, when the kids were like super small, so like when Dayla was like, I don't know, 2 or 3 and Masai was 1, we thought that we were going to be into like corporal punishment or whatever and like, spank them because whatever, like we're Caribbean. So,
Right.
I grew up, that's just regular. You know what I'm saying? My parents never like, I realize now that I'm older, there are definitely some of my peoples that suffered abuse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
went
there wasn't
overboard.
that's what I'm saying. Like there wasn't no random objects that my parents used to club me with or be, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But we definitely used to get spanking, and I used to look at people crazy when they're like, "Oh, I'll never spank my kids." I used to look at them like, "Yo, you're bugging." But it has to be super extreme for us to spank the kids. But to be honest, we've kind of figured it out at this point to where it's like, and no disrespect to your white viewers, but not on some white people shit where it's like Tommy time out for 10 seconds, but we've been able to figure it out to where it's like, they understand that there's going to be repercussions that they got to deal with if they act a certain way or if they do some dumb shit. It's like, we take away certain freedoms or we take away the ability to do certain things or, whatever the punishment is, we figured it out to where it's like they stay in line, you know what I mean? And I think my oldest, the funny thing is like, sorry about that. My FaceTime is connected to the computer. Not a good look. But my oldest, he spankings, like he kind of stopped being affected by them. And I was like, okay, we really got to figure out some other shit. You know what I mean? Like he would get the spankings and kind of like, he wouldn't cry. And we're like, all right.
To get like a G.
Yeah, really. So it's like, we're like, all right, well, clearly this ain't working.
It's like, what else you got for me?
Exactly. So like we really just had to figure out shit that matters to them. And what's interesting with my kids, they don't like to be embarrassed. None of them like to be embarrassed. So if they feel like some heavy shame or some embarrassment or some shit like that, that's 10 times worse than the spanking,
Mm-hmm.
So we got a tight unit in terms of like, all my best friends and my actual blood family. Like we have a really tight knit family type environment. So it's like, if they do some shit and it's like, when we speak to them, whether it's on FaceTime or the few times that we're able to see them in person during this pandemic, and we're like, yo, you want to hear what your nephew did or what your niece did? That shit is, we might as well have like, taken 5 belts and beat the shit out of them. Like,
I got a collection. I got a collection of like, how you taking videos of your kids and pictures and shit. So I got a collection stockpiled in my Google Photos folder of like embarrassing moments.
Oh, you're holding in the vault?
So I got a 13.
You love that shit, man.
I'll be preparing, kid. You never know. But I got my 13-year-old. So I got that's my third child, 13. She, I always joke with her. She's approaching her 15, so that's a big milestone for Latin girls. And I'm like, yo, don't take any missteps, because quiet as kept, you might see a video pop up with some shit that you did when you was 8. That your friends are gonna laugh at you all the way through high school. And she's like, nah, Dad, chill.
Straight up public ridicule.
But it's funny you brought up your kids being embarrassed, and that's the thing that gets them. So we've had Cypher Sounds, good friend of the show. He's been on a couple times, and he actually he brought you up on one of the times that he was on. I'll preface it by saying he said you were a great dad. First of all, he said that you should. He said you should be on the show.
Word.
But he was talking about that he wasn't raised with a dad, and so he said that his parenting style is pretty loose and he's not very strict. And he said, on the flip side, you're strict or you're stricter than he is, and there's not a lot of wiggle room with what your kids can and can't do. But he also said that he, like, when you guys are out, he's you come from the school of don't take any shit from anyone and no disrespect on your name or any of that kind of stuff.
Oh, he really was on the show. That's my number. That's my number one rule. And yo, any of my boys, anybody who's family to me, they know. I always say, anywhere we are in the world, any one of them, I'll be like, yo, what's my number one rule? We don't take no form of disrespect. That's
what he said. So
yeah.
So I'm wondering, have you instilled that in your kids, and do you think that is the part that makes their embarrassment like be a stronger emotion than any kind of physical discipline?
No, you know what? I think because we're so close to them, they just don't want to let us down. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I think that's really what it is. Like, you can see it. And to be honest, like it's although it's effective, it's difficult though. You know what I mean? Because it's like, a spanking is something like, you'll get over it. You know what I mean? Like, whatever, like it's a brief moment in time to where there's minimal pain, whatever, you talk about it after. But like the disappointment and the shame and that type of thing, it's like you really have to talk to your kids so that they don't start to like carry that with them. You know what I'm saying? And it's like you don't use it, or we don't anyways, like we don't use it on some devious type shit. I think what it is it's like they're important lessons that they learn that they don't want to repeat again. Yeah. I think what it is with spankings, just like with my oldest son, there's so many of us that I know, like so many of my boys that they're like, I just got to an age to where, when my parents used to spank us or discipline us, like it didn't hurt anymore. And
build up a resilience.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It becomes ineffective. But it's like when it's more of a mental thing, it's like that evolves. You know what I'm saying? There's an evolution in that. And I think that's why it's been effective. It takes different forms. Like when they're 4 years old, it's different from, I guess from what affects them when they're 8 years old and stuff like that. But I mean, just going back to Saif, Saif is just, the dope thing about Saif, like Saif is one of my best friends. And the thing about Saif is that he's also just discovering a lot of shit about himself for the first time. So fatherhood takes on, like, it's very different, because I think, as we all know, being parents, we're also discovering ourselves as we go along. Yep, things right. That we are like, whatever, like that, that doesn't mean anything to me. And then you have kids and all of a sudden you're just looking at the world with a different lens. So I think what's happening, because, Saif has been a big promoter of going to therapy and really, figuring yourself out and how to deal with your own issues. I think, what's happening is he's learning about himself at the same time that he's a new father. You know what I mean? So it's like, I see what he's trying to do is like, he is a bit loose, but it's interesting because I also don't think his wife kind of balances that out sometimes, because I don't see it. I think that she's one of the sweetest people, but at the same time, he's like, yo, she doesn't fuck around. So, I think, they balance each other out. And where I used to think that I was the tough one, my wife, listen, her father is like he's retired now, but was like a high ranking military official, in the Navy. So it's funny because when I met my wife, I was like, oh, I need to marry this girl, because she was like the sweetest person ever. Well, come to find out, that shit is
that was marketing.
That was it was definitely marketing. But it's interesting because a lot of the times, like, she's tougher on them than I am. You know what I'm saying? But I think at the end of the day, just if I'm being completely honest, there are some people that are super close to me, and pre-quarantine, obviously, I had to stop inviting certain people to the crib because I'm like, yo, what the fuck? How are you guys raising your kids? Like they'd come over to the crib, shit would be broken within 10 minutes.
Nah, son.
And I'm like, yo, like looking at them like, yo, you're gonna discipline your kids, right? Nothing.
I mean, that's a form of disrespect, Kardi. You got to kick them out immediately.
Yeah, you got to put up that disrespect.
but you see what it is. It's like, we're also the type of people, like if your parents are not going to say some shit, we're also the type of people to be like, yo, come here. All right, so here's how it's going to work. And we're going to deal with your kids.
You're the village.
I'm not physically doing no shit to them.
Right.
But at the same time, like if your parents are not going to do anything, you're at least going to know, like when you're where we are at, you got to abide by like how we flex. And that's the thing is, it's like, I never kind of want to feel like somebody else feels like they gotta do things any differently. Like if you have a certain parenting style, like, yo, by all means do whatever works for you, because I know also how sensitive of a subject that can be for people. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm never one to be like, yo fam, like what are you doing? Although half of the time with some of my people, I'm like, yo fam, what are you doing?
Yeah, you think it is.
But nah, I mean, with Syph and other people that have a different parenting style, our thing is, it's like as long as we always communicate to our kids so they know what's acceptable and unacceptable to us, do what you need to do. You know what I mean? With your kids, like do whatever it is that you need to do. But, we'll have that. Listen, we're the type of parents to have that conversation when we get back home. Like if we went out to a get together or whatever, when we get back home, we're like, yo, that bullshit that you saw those guys doing, don't try that shit over here, yo. You know what I mean? And that's the real.
Don't get it twisted. Yeah, because they're quick to change a habit real fast. Like, oh shit, that was flying over there?
Yo, did it ever happen to you guys? I know that it happened to me. Like our kids were a certain way, and then when they started going to school, they came home with all kind of dumb shit. And we're like,
yeah.
What is this? But obviously, like we realize how much of an influence school has, because they picked up some real crazy habits, you know what I mean, that we obviously had to work out. But it was really wild. Like when they started going to school, that's when you really realize how much other people's parenting habits are going to affect your kids in some type of way, or lack of parenting habits.
That's kind of scary. It's almost like you have no control at that point.
You got to rein them in. I mean, it's the big comparison factor of like, oh, well, such and such gets to do that, and then or they bring home all kinds of weird shit that they think flies because it's one of their friends is doing it.
My girl took my daughter to the my gym shit that she goes to, the kiddie gym. Mm-hmm. And she said for the first time, my daughter saw a kid wilding out, and they try to structure those little classes, like they have different things that they do. And she saw the kid wilding, and then my daughter started to follow suit. And it's the first time that she had done it. This just happened like last week. And my girl's like, yo, I don't know what got into her. Yeah. But all of a sudden, this kid's running and screaming and not following the program. And then she started doing it, following the kid around. Screaming and running around. I was like, oh, hell.
What do you do in that circumstance? Like, I'm sure it's happened to you, Kardi, and E, I'm curious, but K, I think I know K's answer. But like, when your kid is wilding out in public or is leaning in that direction, like you see like the shift, right? And they're about to go down the path that they shouldn't. How do you rein them back in? Let's imagine a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old kid, like that age range.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny because when Mecca she started school last year. The school, they have those kind of interviews, or they just put them in the setting to do assessments and stuff for some of the schools. And Mecca, we used to even before they got to school, we used to homeschool them. So by the time Mecca started going to school, like she was already way more advanced than her classmates. But I remember her first day of school, there was this little Asian kid, and he was losing it. Like I'm talking about, like he was like
Asian kid was losing it.
He was spread eagle. He did he was not like, he wouldn't go in the door. Like they're trying to pull him in the door. He was spread out, snot, tears, everything just going crazy. And I remember Mecca looking back at us like yo, is this what we're doing? And we were like, we just, we brought her aside and we're like, listen, he's, I mean, I can't remember what, I'm paraphrasing, but we were like, yo, like, that's not how we behave. You know what I mean? Like, he's out of his mind. And it's like, yo, we don't behave like that. So when you go in that class, make sure that you're not following him. You know how to behave. So we try to have preemptive strikes, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
Like I'm just trying to think. It only happened to us a couple of times, but like, yo, my wife will straight take the kids into a washroom and go have a talk.
Go ham.
You know what I'm saying?
Listen, you little motherfucker.
But
waterboarding and shit.
The most difficult time, like my kids have been globetrotters since they were born. The toughest time, and to be honest, it wasn't their fault. It wasn't Dela's fault, but we had gone to do some philanthropic work in Kenya. We were building schools and doing a whole host of stuff like that. And on the way back, he was only, I don't know, 2, maybe 3. Like it was an 18-hour trip to get back home. And I think by like the 12th, no, you know what? Including
layover,
including the layovers, it might have been like 22 hours to get back home. I think by like maybe the 16th hour or something like that, he just lost it on the plane. He lost it. And I think at that point in time, it's like you kind of just got to take the L. It was mad embarrassing. The whole plane was looking at us. But it's like, I remember when the flight attendant came over and we're just like, listen, we are traveling all the way from Kenya and, we're headed back to Canada. Like, after about a half hour of a meltdown, he was good. You know what I'm saying? And it's just one of those things, again, like with our kids traveling, because we got them used to it. It's like, even with the traveling where it's like, we see some families where we just kind of shake our heads because they don't know what to do with their kids. It's like our kids got so used to it that it's like, even if I'm not there, people are like, yo, how can your wife travel alone with like a baby and 2 little boys? Well, like, yo, they get on the plane and, she might sit on an aisle seat and then they sit across the aisle side by side. Yo, they put on their headphones, plug it into an iPad, put on their little show. That's it. They got this.
They do get devices at that point.
Oh, traveling. Hell yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Hell yeah. Oh,
I was about to say, before you said that, I was like, what do they do with no devices?
No.
He's Cardinal Offishall, not Cardinal fucking crazy.
You know what I mean? No. Definitely. No. Just during school. That's just
building robots and shit.
Nah, but I mean, listen, like my kids though, like we have them in like a lot of dope shit. So it's like they're in, this past summer they were part of this Black boy coding camp. You know what I mean? So it's like they're doing like a lot of STEM shit. So, like my kids I'm telling you, like where a lot of kids will maybe, want to, play on an Xbox or whatever. Like, yeah, like my kids, they got a Nintendo Switch and, my oldest son, he's into it, but nothing crazy. You know what I mean? It's like they're well balanced. So it's like, because his mom, she's a self-proclaimed science nerd, it's like the rest of the kids, they're into that stuff as well. You know what I mean? So they literally do build robots and, like functioning robots and shit like that. And that's kind of the stuff that they're into. So, I mean, I think it's fire. You know what I mean? Like we encourage them to do all that kind of stuff. And it's like, it's dope because there's certain coding programs that they have to where it's like it's coding, but it's actually making beats at the same time. So sure. It's like we even found some ways for them to learn coding that I can actually teach them because it incorporates the musical side. So I think one of the things that I really understand and I'm coming to learn and love about being a parent is it's like you are as good as your support system, and you are as good as your imagination. Some parents just don't have any imagination.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I find a lot of joy in being able to, when parents are like, yo, how did you do that? You know what I'm saying? Or, yo, your kids did this or they did that. Like, how did you guys work that out? And it's really about the work that you put in. Like, because kids, like, we really learn from a super, from the time that the kids were really young, that, all right, put it this way. My kids are not really into like sweets and shit like that. So like chocolate and ice cream and all the rest of that stuff. But it's only because we don't really feed them that shit. But here's the thing, because like they don't know any better. You know what I mean? They don't know what they're missing. Like that's regular to them. Like my kids have never ever had McDonald's, but to them they're also like, they're like, like, you know what I mean? So it's different if you introduce it into a kid's life and then try and scale back or take it away, because then the kids are like, oh, I want McDonald's or whatever dumb shit. But it's like they've never had McDonald's, so it's like they have no interest in it. You know what I mean? And I think that's really part of our flex. Is it's like we introduce stuff into their lives that we want them to rock with. But if there's some, if there's some shit, at least until they get old enough to experiment on their own, there's just stuff that, that they're just not interested in. And I think that's what parents have to understand is whatever you create to be their norm, that's what they're going to understand is normal to them. You know what I mean? Like, put it, me and my wife, we became poor many years ago when we invested in, in the house that we live in. Like we live on 10 acres. So to my kids, running around, like we live, I always say we live in the forest, but it's like, like running around, being able to have all the space in the world to just do outdoor shit and whatever, that's super normal to them. You know what I mean? So it's like, whatever you introduce to your kids as the norm, that's what they're going to understand is normal. Like, trust me, the other day, me and my oldest, we were outside in the summertime playing catch, and like there were bunny rabbits just hopping around, and I had to tell him, I'm like, you have to understand that this is not normal.
This is not normal.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, listen, I grew up in the buildings, you know what I'm saying? Like, where I grew up in the apartments, like, there were no bunnies in the hood where I grew up, you know what I'm saying? Like, so as we're like looking at, like, it was dope, but I was like, you got to understand, like, maybe to even some of your friends, like, this ain't regular shit. Like, you're growing up and you're like, there's a bunny hopping around, or, deer. Other random deer, other wildlife that come around the property and stuff. It's like, again, this is what their norm is. And it's like, we don't take any of it for granted. But I think that's what a lot of parents need to understand as well. It's like, we can't be influenced by what we see other parents doing or what we think other parents are doing, because half the time we don't even know if that's really working for them or not. We really just gotta, be guided by what we want for our kids. And it's really just about what you are willing to sacrifice in order to get a certain result out of your kids. And that's really it.
So what I'm getting out of this conversation is all the failures of a parent that I am right now. Because everything is laying out, I'm like, okay, I fucked that up.
I don't do that.
All right, pretty fucked up here. I got to have a conversation with my girl about this, that, and this. Yeah, we just had Halloween, and I was excited that because I like Halloween, so I was excited my daughter got into Halloween. And then she doesn't really eat candy. Well, she hadn't really ate candy until Halloween.
Yeah.
And then she became a little candy crackhead. Like,
yeah.
And she's balling out like, give me, candy, give me. I'm like, oh shit, wow, we fucked up, dude.
Yeah. But part of like introducing things, and then it's like furthering the conversation as the years go on, so that they can start to make the decisions their own. Like, go to like the sweet stuff, for example. Like my son, he likes sweet stuff, but he doesn't OD on it, because he's learned that like too much of anything is not a great thing. Mm-hmm. So, there might have been a point in time when he was a little bit younger where he ate too much ice cream and it didn't make him feel good. And then our explanation was like, look, if you keep eating too much sugar, that's how you're going to feel. So if you want to have something, then moderate it. You got to be in charge of yourself to moderate what you're doing so that you feel the best you can feel. And for whatever reason, that stuck with him. And so he's like super mindful of like, all right, I'll have a couple bites of this, but I'm not going to have too much because I don't want to, I don't want to feel.
Okay,
relax, E. Relax.
You took that Method Man skit way too far. Keep feeding him.
I thought he was gonna hit you with, yeah, guy, but how am I gonna tell that to a 2-year-old guy?
Yeah, because K is the resident guru Buddhist that floats on clouds, and his kids was potty trained at 0 day.
Yo, for real, like 2 months, not even 2 months. It was like 3 weeks. His kid was already potty trained. Fucking K. But let me ask you something, Kardi, because you mentioned, by the way, when somebody says on the property, they really got some acreage on that ass. So. You said you grew up in the buildings, right? And you're playing catch with your son, and then you see bunny rabbits, and for you, still, that is something to stop and admire, right?
Hell yeah!
You understand how different life was for you before. Your kids don't, because they didn't have to live through that. Do you find yourself getting upset though that they can't comprehend it?
No,
not anymore. I think the answer is not anymore.
Nah, you know what it is like. The only thing that and I'm not in a rush. It's backstage at a show. So Caravana is is one of our the best times of year in Toronto. And for those that don't know what it is, it's pretty much like our. Our carnival here. It's like, for New York, it's, Eastern Parkway, same kind of deal. And yeah, now in LA, they have their carnival thing that they do out there. So for us, Caravana, massive, couple million people in the city, blah, blah, blah. So I remember there was one Caravana Saturday, I was backstage with one of my guys, and, somebody, I respect his parenting. And one of my homeboys for years, you know what I mean? Like, we know each other for decades at this point. Excuse me. And I remember, he said to me, he was like, yo, take your son to the neighborhood. And I was like, why would I do that? And he's like, yo, like you gotta show them and, let them have a certain amount of understanding of what the streets are and be able to have street sense as well. You know what I mean? You can't super shelter them the whole time. Now, mind you, this is not a street guy at all. You know what I'm saying? Like he's
telling you this is not a street dude
at all. You know what I mean? He's somebody, I mean, he came from the neighborhood, but he's just like, you know what I'm saying? Like regular dude. I mean, yeah, he's a, whatever. He's a concert promoter, an event promoter, as well as like, he holds a square job where he works at the bank or whatever. But the point is he's far from that guy. But I remember we had a very interesting conversation because it's like, for me, somebody that came from the neighborhood has nothing to do with the people in it. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want for my kids to develop a fascination for the neighborhood as well, because the reality of it, like as somebody who's in his 40s looking back, the only reason we were in the neighborhood is because at the time my parents couldn't afford for us to be anywhere else. Yep. And when we could, we moved. You know what I'm saying? I think, people have, I think especially within hip hop, we have this, what's the word? Like we're fixed.
Romanticize.
We do. We romanticize the hood in a certain type of way. But I think a lot of times the people that romanticize the neighborhood are the people that don't necessarily have the options. Because I loved growing up in the neighborhood. Some of my best friends, some of the best times I ever had were in the neighborhood and shit that I'll always remember. The difference for me is, if somebody said to me, you could grow up, like in a nice house with a backyard, I'm out. You know what I'm saying? 100%. Like, I'll never forget when I was listening to Mobb Deep and he said, no matter how much loot I get, I'm staying in the projects space forever. I said, forever? I said you're never leaving, bro. Like, yo, to me, that was the wildest Mobb Deep lyric I ever heard in my life. I was like, yo, he's gonna have M's and still be in the projects. Like, I thought that, like, we were laughing about that. I think this summer, we had a social distance like thing, like out in the field, in the back of the crib. Like, we have enough space to where we can be out there and outside and everything's cool. But I remember we were laughing about that because we were like, yo, could you imagine, like, what kind of mentality do you have to say, yo, no matter how much loot I get, I'm staying in the projects.
Yeah, that's real. Space
forever. Like, you know what I mean? But I think about that because it's like, yo, whenever I go back and I see, I visit, my guys who are that, honestly, at this point in time, most of the people that grew up in the different neighborhoods that I grew up in across the city have all moved out of the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're all doing well for themselves, you know what I mean? And most of them have nothing to do with entertainment. They're just, regular working folk, and they moved out of the neighborhoods. And it's like, we're super thankful for that. But it's like, I don't know, maybe you guys have an opinion on it, but it's like, I don't want my kids to be sheltered, but at the same time, I don't want them also unnecessarily to be overthinking, I guess, especially as like young black men. Sometimes it's like the thought is, I don't want like when they get older, for people to be like, y'all niggas is soft, yo. Kardinal's your dad. You guys grew up, you know what I mean? Like, nice house and whatever, like, y'all niggas ain't real. I don't also want them to try and overcompensate, by the time that they're of age and, think that they have to prove to other people, how tough they are, how hard they are, or whatever. Because I mean, for us, the only reason why we had to do that shit in the neighborhood is because we had to. But for my kids, for now, I'm just like, yo, I want to give them the opposite of what I had. I want to give them, the best. You know what I mean? I always say I want to provide everything that they need and some of what they want. That's my goal. You know what I mean?
Quote.
Yeah, I mean, we actually talk about this a lot, like the balance of you want to give your kids that best life possible, but at the same time, you being that where we all kind of come from, you want them to have some kind of street smarts, because it's a rough world out there. And so that's always, I mean, we're always discussing it. I don't think we ever have the answers for it. Like, how do you give your kids street smarts without them being in the streets? Like, how does that happen?
I don't know, because that's the thing, is it's like, to be completely honest, like, how do you do that? How do you let them understand how the block works without being on the block?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's funny, like, I had a talk with some of my guys because we're gonna just this collab that I did with some rappers from up here, and we're gonna go shoot something. And it's interesting because they were talking about, we're gonna be shooting in the neighborhood or whatever. And I told them, I'm like, listen, when it comes to me, I'm not one of those, like, I'm super easy when it comes to, like, doing collabs or this or that or whatever. We're gonna shoot a video, but I told them, I'm like, my only stipulation is I'm not doing anything that will risk me coming back home to my wife and kids. That's it. So I'm like, yo, we could shoot a video, whatever. But, like, am I going to the middle of the hood at 11 p.m. to shoot my video just to show that I could do it? I don't give a fuck about none of that shit.
Right.
I'm not doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing it. And they're like, yo, you know what I mean? Like, you already know we all holding or whatever. I'm like, yo, you guys don't understand. Like, I'm not interested in any of that anymore, bro. Like, I don't care. You know what I mean? Because I had to explain to them, I'm like, yo, my people's hold heat too. But it's like, that's not what I'm about. I care about my kids and my wife more than anything. So if it's something to where, and I told them, I'm like, yo, I'm happy being a square at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, nothing is doper to me than being a dad. I've never had a doper experience than being able to be a father. So I'm like, yo, you think that I'm going to risk that, you know what I mean, to go shoot a random video that, for dumb shit, but might get shot up, or, you know what I mean? Like, nah, like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But having those conversations and those type of experiences just further my point to where I'm just like, I don't know how to give my kids street sense and how to equip them properly. You know what I mean? Because I definitely don't want them to have those experiences that I had growing up, because to be honest, I'm thankful that I made it out of that shit unscathed.
Right.
You know, not everybody did, as we all know.
Yeah.
How do you feel being the guy who, I guess, I don't even know if this is even a debatable thing, like really paved the way for Toronto rap, right? And then you expressing all this stuff about being a dad. How do you balance? Because the magnitude of somebody like yourself and what your significance is to hip hop culture in Canada, generally speaking. How do you balance that? Because I got to imagine still to this day, you walking around Canada, anywhere in Canada, you're probably going to be, somebody's going to be like, oh my God, Cardinal, blah, blah. How do you balance that versus being just Jason at the crib?
Couple things. One thing is that, again, relatively speaking, how I am at the crib is how I am on the street. So there's not really a persona for me. You know what I mean? Okay. Like a lot of artists, like they have a persona, but it's like you chill with them outside of all the lights and shit. And I'm like, yo, you like, you're absolutely nothing like your persona. Like for me, I don't really code switch. But I had to learn it, yo. I had to learn to figure out how to be comfortable in my own skin. And I guess that's part of like becoming an OG, because I never used to be down with that. I used to look at it like it's almost like I don't want to say like shame, but you know what I mean? Like, especially within hip hop, because it's such a youth driven culture. Yeah. It's like, it really took a lot for me to understand that, like, you could, like, to be able to graduate and not just be of a certain age group, but also that people actually give a fuck about who you are. Like, you know, you got to figure out how to wear that and be confident in it. You know what I'm saying? And it's like,
I feel like you're looking at my white beard right now.
Huh?
I said, I feel like you're looking at my white beard right now.
No.
Self-conscious.
No. But it's like, you know, I think mixing and talking to different people in the street or people when I meet them, what's dope, honestly, is when I meet either young fathers or people that are, I'm going to take a liberty and say within our age group, it's like people are like, yo, Kardi, I heard what you said in that interview. Yo, that's fire, bro. You know what I mean? Like, it made me feel, you know, a lot more comfortable. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I relate to a lot of what you said. And I think the more that I am open just with the public in general, and you know, I feel strong and confident enough in what my beliefs are. Like, to be honest, that's such a liberating thing, yo, especially when it comes to being a parent. Because I start to meet parents all over the place that are like, yo, I love what you guys are doing with your kids. I see from time to time you post your kids and your family, and I see, you know, that love that you have for them. And I love that, because what it does is it just opens more doors and just allows for more people to feel cool with how they feel about their families. You know what I mean? Because it's like, think about it, especially within hip hop, the more that we see what people's family life is like I'm not talking about like all the super, like, you know, shit that you should keep private, but I mean, like, I think it's dope, like, you know, seeing 2 Chainz, you know, interacting with his kids, or, you know, Ice Cube, how, you know what I mean, like how he was raising his kids, or, you know, all these different examples of people that as time went on within hip hop and people became a little bit more open and started, you know, telling people and showing people how they were family men. I thought that was something ill, you know what I mean, that just kind of like made being an OG within hip hop that much more dope.
It allowed hip hop to mature.
Yeah. Because I mean, look at it now. You know, a man like, you know, sure, there was a little bit of controversy with it at the beginning, but look at somebody like Drake. He's almost exactly 10 years younger than me. But what's dope is that now it's like, you know, he's now kind of putting his son out there on Front Street and posting about the first day of school, you know what I'm saying? And shit like that, to where, yo, 5-10 years ago, that might not have been the move. You know what I mean? Like, he might have, you know, and think about it like this, like, for whatever his reasons are, he actually wanted to hide his kid, you know what I mean, for the first little while.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can only imagine what that must have felt like as a dad, because obviously, like, you know, that is something that, you know, at least for good dads, like, let's not fuck around. There's garbage dads out there.
Right.
But I mean, for somebody like him who seems like he really loves his son and really wants to be a dad, like, imagine how painful or what kind of lengths he had to go through to hide his son, you know what I mean, for the first little while. But I think it must have been so freeing and dope and liberating for him now that he can just be out in the open, show everybody like how he's providing for his kid and all the rest of that type of shit. And I think now that people are seeing people like Drake do it, now it's going to be cool for other people to do it. And I think that kind of domino effect is something dope. And we gotta continue to normalize that within our culture so that, you know, being dope fathers and family men is something that is more regular, you know?
Well, that's why we're here.
Well said.
We're trying to do our part in that.
Word up. Word up.
So Kardi, this being fatherhoods, I got to go to dinner. If not,
you and me both.
Do you have anything that you want to promote or shout out or anything before we get out of here?
I don't really want to promote anything. I mean, you know, you can follow me. Twitter is a weird world for me. Twitter, like, I got to get off Twitter. Like, it always feels like whenever I scroll, it feels like people, like, several different people are yelling at me at the same time. Like, you know what I mean? It's like you're looking at some shit where they're like, you know, fuck Trump. And then you scroll to the next thing. Yo, do you eat ass? You scroll to another thing. I'm just like, yo, what's happening? Like,
you're following Nori then.
Well, definitely following Nori. But, you know, you can follow me on both Twitter and IG at Kardinal O, and that's Kardinal with a K. And that's a good way to keep up with everything that I'm doing for the most part. You know, I would just say, yo, like, thanks for having me on this platform. And, you know, again, I really love the ability to have these conversations. You know what I'm saying? Like, whether it's this podcast or, you know, Drink Champs, that you know, I feel like both of these platforms are doing a really big part in normalizing shit that has never been normal within hip hop before. You know what I mean? To where now, you know, what Drink Champs did, you know, you guys grew your fan base to where it's like all generations are looking at Drink Champs and everybody's being educated. I think what's dope about what we're doing right here today is it's like we are normalizing something that we need within our communities. You know what I mean? Like within the Latino community, within the Caribbean community, but just not even just these certain ethnicities, but just as men, you know what I mean? Like we need to be able to normalize how to have these conversations, how to be emotionally available for our kids. That's a massive thing. How to, you know, learn how to be vulnerable for our kids and to be open and have communication, not just with them, but with other dads, you know what I mean? Like, yo, let's continue to, you know, to share game, you know what I mean? So that we can see, oh shit, you know what I mean? The shit that worked for KGB, I'm going to implement that, you know what I mean? In my daily life starting tomorrow, you know what I mean? Or, you know, maybe some shit that Manny's doing, I will not do with my kids.
Yeah, probably not.
You know?
Probably not.
So
stashing embarrassing photos.
It's safe to say that you'll join us again. I hope. You know, we definitely
course.
Let's have you
learn to have a perfect.
You know what would be dope, and it's like, I don't know what the format is. I don't want to fuck up the format, but you know what would be, you know, I think what would be dope is to, you know, to be able to maybe, you know, come back on, but have like a few fathers, you know, like who knows, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that would be really ill, because there are, you know, a lot of dope dads out there. And the funny thing is, like, you know, we huddle together and we have these conversations, you know, offline. But I think it would be dope if you look at somebody like, you know, Corey Smith, who's a manager for, you know, for Vince Staples and for Chappelle and whatever. Like, you know, me and him talk about, you know, fatherhood and different dope shit that we do. You know, when it comes to Syph, when it comes to even Just Blaze. I don't know if you guys have had him on the show yet, but it's like, I mean, listen, like even his parenting style is super ill, because it's like his guy. Now, first of all, his son is a giant. So when you do get him on the show, like, ask him about his son. His son looked like a 10-year-old when he was like a year and a half.
Oh, shit.
But But you know, me and Just Blaze, like we have conversations about, you know, kids and being dope fathers and incorporating hip hop into it and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys saw that post that Just Blaze did where it's like his son, who's not even 4, can name every member of the Wu-Tang Clan. You know what I mean? Which is super ill. So I mean, it would be dope, you know, kind of to have like maybe to have a few of us on the show at the same time, and you know what I mean, just like I just think it would be super entertaining.
That'd be dope.
Absolutely. Oh look, I think my daughter's trying to break in. Come, bang, mommy, bang, come say
hi.
Bang, baby.
Oh yeah,
and my dog.
Hello. Oh man. How cute are you?
Say
How
hi,
are
mommy.
you?
And your dog wants in too.
Yeah, my dog too. All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna be out of here.
All right. Yo, Kardi, man, thank you, bro.
No, absolutely. Thank you
Appreciate
guys
it,
for
man.
having me on, man.
All right, thank you very much, man.
We'll do it again.
Appreciate
All right,
you,
absolutely.
brother.
Absolutely. Peace and love,
We'll
yo.
talk soon, man.